On a right-wing radio show tonight, and once again, Donald Trump confessed.
You know, when Biden is admonishing me for documents that I'm allowed to have as president, I'm allowed to have. You know, when I flew into Florida, I landed before 11 o'clock. We were in Mar-a-Lago shortly thereafter. I was still president of the United States, I believe, until 12 o'clock. And I was in there. That's a big difference, too. And we were allowed to take this.
Back with us, Mary McCord and Andrew Weissman. And Mary McCord, you just heard the subject of a criminal investigation for criminal possession of classified documents and government documents say, I was allowed to have them.
Well, you know, former President Trump has said so many different things about the documents that were found at Mar-a-Lago. First, that they were planted by the FBI, then that he declassified them all, now that he was allowed to have them. And even if we were to take as truth him saying that he was still the President of the United States when he landed at Mar-a-Lago with the documents, which, mind you, I don't know. I think they were loaded into trucks, not on the plane with him, but never mind that. Even if he was still president when he landed, that didn't authorize him to keep them in storage units that were unauthorized storage units, to transport them in ways that were not secure and met the regulations for transporting classified documents. And of course, it says nothing about the months and months and months of defiance of requests to return classified documents, the need for the government to seek a subpoena when that wasn't enough, the need to seek a search warrant. So, you know, Donald Trump says lots of things. Most of them are not believable at all. And in fact, you know, the horrible, horrible things that he said today about Jack Smith and his wife, I actually am kind of glad those aren't being elevated by the press, because it might be a double standard, but it's lies, and it's the kind of lies that actually really works up the extremists in this country, the hyper partisan and sometimes violent extremists who then, you know, take those words and they elevate their extremism, they elevate the violence associated with them, and sometimes act on those things. So I think, you know, I would like to see us all ignore what Donald Trump has to say about this or anything else.
Well, there's one more thing we're going to have to listen to him say, and that's his attack on Andrew Weissman tonight on that same radio show. Let's listen to that.
He's got a conflict my prosecutor.
Yes, Jack Smith.
Jack Smith. I wonder what his name was before Smith. I don't know. Maybe it was Smith, but it seems like such a nice name, Jack Smith. He is a terrorist. He is a Trump hater. His best friends are Weissman and all of these characters.
Yeah.
Andrew Weissman, your response.
Being maligned by the former president puts me in extremely good company of people I revere, from Bob Mueller to Lisa Monaco to John McCain, to name just a few. I think it's best to ignore that. You know, he is going to be acting out and lashing out. And you know, if we think that the past is any sign, it's going to get worse as the Georgia case is proceeding down the tracks, and as the federal investigation on Mar-a-Lago and January 6th proceed. So I think we're going to get more of the same. And I think Mary's admonition is exactly right, which is that we have to be very careful about how we cover these things, because there really is a huge problem of domestic extremism in this country, and Donald Trump is quite aware of that. As we saw on January 6th, is all too ready to activate that kind of force, and he will do that, you know, as he sees that the end is nearing for him.
There's a report of one of the documents being found among the Biden documents to be a top secret document. By our count, 60 of the documents found and seized from Donald Trump are top secret, one from Joe Biden. So that's the perspective on the top secret documents. And Andrew Weissman, let me take you back to the confessional part of what Donald Trump just said there when he said, I'm allowed to have them. That is his argument. I'm allowed to have them. And he's allowed to have them, 60 classified documents. He's allowed to have those a year and a half after his presidency?
Well, he's not allowed to have classified or, frankly, unclassified documents. These are government property, and there are criminal laws with respect to all of that. So what he could do as president, as Mary said, is very different than what he could do not as president. And so his admitting that he was authorized to take them really is a confession as to what happened the very next day, which is he no longer, as an ex-president, is allowed to have them, again, regardless of whether they're classified or not. The number of documents is definitely relevant to criminal intent, which is the key issue in a case. And again, is I think the thing that will differentiate the conclusions reached by Jack Smith and the conclusions reached by Mr. Hur. When it's one document, there still is a national security concern, potentially, depending on what's in that document, and that is a serious and a real issue. But in terms of criminal liability, having one stray document doesn't suggest in any way the kind of facts that we're seeing with respect to the former president.
And Mary McCord, when Donald Trump says, I'm allowed to have them, to what extent can his misunderstanding, if it is a misunderstanding of the law, can that work as a criminal defense?
Well, it depends, Lawrence, and there's a very limited defense based on misunderstanding. But here, what's going to be key is intent, not just when they were taken, but intent to retain them, and particularly after they were asked by officials in the U.S. government to return them. So I think there's 2 points in time that are relevant when we compare the Biden situation to the Trump situation. We don't yet know in either case what the intent was of whomever originally removed these documents from the White House and took them to places where they were not authorized to be. We don't know, first of all, was it Trump himself or one of his aides? We don't know whether it was Biden himself or one of his aides. We don't know whether it was in